There's just constantly a barrage of things that are trying to get our attention. The fact that people have become much more mobile in their life, and the fact that we are feeling a sense of overload. Whether it's overload because of information or overload because of just all the many things that are being thrown at us at higher and higher velocity. And this is true in both the advanced markets and in the developing markets.
Middle class. I mean, this is the first time we've seen in our lifetime that actually people have broken the barrier to coming up in the middle class. Traditionally, it's like our parents from middle class, grandparents from middle class. So, having said that, we've seen at least 3 examples: Thailand, China, and India. The Indian middle class is the most knowledgeable and educated, yet it has made the least impact in change of lifestyle or infrastructure. I mean, look what Bangkok has done in the last 15 years. Totally brand new city. They've totally changed the infrastructure, right? China, of course, is because it's not a democratic country, it's by force. But in India, you have everything, right? Why is the change not happening? At the same pace as it happens in an organization or small or large organization, doesn't matter, right? But the change is not coming.
Yeah, now you're touching on perhaps an important question, but I think it's a little bit of an adjunct question to what we're trying to address. But let me just address your point briefly, and then we can come back to it separately.
Okay.
Yeah, I think India, relative to many of the countries that we compare ourselves to, you put your finger on it. You're in a democracy, and you're in a very noisy democracy, right? So if I have to expand, the airport in Mumbai, where do I go? It's ringed by, one of the largest slums in Asia. Now, what do I do about, the slums? What do I do about the roads? I can't expand the roads. It's because everybody has a point of view on what is to be done. And that's the price of democracy. That's one. Second, India, whether it's perhaps more by default than by design, has actually found a growth path that bypasses the physical infrastructure. Because the only piece of physical infrastructure actually 2 pieces of physical infrastructure that the Indian economy has needed. One is fiber optic cable, and the other is cell phone towers. And essentially you can get most back office services and information technology out through both. So it doesn't matter that your roads are narrow, your airports suck, and we have people living in desperate conditions, all over, not just in the cities but in the villages. So if there's enough going on the virtual highway, then I don't have I can keep ignoring the physical highway. That said, every time one comes back to any of the cities, and certainly to the rural areas as well, but certainly more so in the cities, we're seeing the change. It's happening slowly. It's hard to make such a change, and given the many forces that work. So I think there's both a demand and supply explanation for why India's infrastructure looks so different relative to Thailand or China. But we can pick up on that.
Okay.
Yeah. I think a fifth significant demand side force is sort of a mega trend that has both a demographic aspect to it and a socio-political aspect to it. The demographic piece, primarily has to do with population, the changes in the population structure. So, particularly in Western economies, we're seeing an enormous aging of the population. And it's not just Western economies, even China is facing an aging crisis. And what that does is, as the consumer gets older, you can't use big things. You have to use things that are smaller, that are simpler, that are more convenient, and that are lighter, and so on and so forth. So there's a physical reason why small is good. When I'm dealing with urban congestion, homes get smaller, spaces get smaller. Again, the goods and services have to get smaller. Green consciousness, we're all becoming aware of the fact that the environment or the breathable environment is getting smaller. And that also leads to smallness in terms of the product and service that people are looking for. In terms of social-political effects, we are beginning to see the emergence of sort of a grassroots level movement. So, whether it's Arab Spring or Hazare, or the Weibo in China, which is China's equivalent of Twitter, and they're now beginning to talk about actually shutting down Weibo, but they're beginning to surface grassroots level protest through some of these media even in China. And as these things start picking up steam, you begin to see a much more engaged consumer, and the engaged consumer kind of wants very specific things, and that leads to that ties back to the empowered consumer and ties back to what consumers will be looking for, which is sort of micro personalization and goods and products that meet the needs of the grassroots movements. On the supply side, again, there's a bunch of the most significant forces. I'll just sort of run by them for you. One is the atomizing effect of information technology. And what do I mean by that? Information technology is the simplest example to kind of see the atomizing effect is to reflect on what has happened to the music distribution business. Okay, so when we were all younger, we either listened to music on, those of us who are the oldest ones in the room remember vinyl records, and then you had cassette tapes or regular tapes, then you had CDs. And the thing that was common across all of them is that the music labels used to bundle 12 songs that you didn't want to hear and 3 songs that you wanted to hear all in one product, and they tried to sell you this thing for a package. So a CD, you would pay $15 for 3 songs you wanted to hear, right? And information technology just allowed you to unbundle all this, so it atomized that package and allowed you to take the product on a micro basis. It allowed micro pricing, so for 99 cents you can download a song on your iPhone. And it also allows atomizing of activity. So I can take a task which fundamentally is a knowledge-based task, and I can break it down into individual bits. I can send 1 bit to Hyderabad. I can send one cluster of bits to Hyderabad, another cluster of bits to Chandigarh, a third to Delhi, and a fourth to Shenzhen, and then use the same technology to reintegrate all of that and create a finished product for a consumer. So this atomizing effect has been a very powerful driver of small activity and small innovation. Okay. Is there a reason why this thing is not advancing? Another significant driver is the fact that we, because of the emergence of all these different economies, we are beginning to see, Shenzhen, Hyderabad, Bangalore, Gurgaon, places in Brazil, Mexico, various parts of Africa, all becoming part of an international value chain that single companies, whether you're large companies or small companies, can utilize. So essentially, the development of a multipolar world is also enabling this smallness. The third is this Goldilocks zone problem, which persists in being one of the biggest hindrances to innovation in large organizations. Fourth is this notion of a high velocity model or a portfolio approach, which has been time and time again in one organization or the other has proven to be the most sustainable way to innovate. So whether you think about the way a successful venture capitalist does his or her business, what they do is they don't put all their eggs in kind of the next Yahoo or the next Google. What they do is they spread their money across 10 potential next Yahoo or the next Google, and hopefully 1.5 out of them will become the next Yahoo or the next Google. So you spread your bets. You spread your bets across many small bets. You don't take one big bet. Then, when you do become the next Google, or you are Google, what do? Well, Google constantly keeps putting out beta versions of the next service. It tries it out for a while, collects data, and then based on the data, it decides to kill it or continue funding it. So again, it's a high velocity model of creating a large number of many different tiny bits, so you fail quickly and you fail fast. And if you don't fail, there's a reason why you haven't failed and you keep going. So there's this notion of doing things in small bits that seems to be that's becoming the predominant formula for success, whether it's in large organizations or in small ones. From a physical and a geopolitical reason, key non-renewable resources, particularly energy resources, are getting more and more constrained. And as they become more constrained, they call for smallness in products, particularly products that depend on energy sources. As an example of how these trends can come together, what I thought I'd do is just, the next set of pages that I just flashed to you are very dense with information, and I'm happy to distribute some of this separately, and so we won't focus on the actual information that's on these pages, but I just want to give you a sense of how all these trends converge to many different companies experimenting with many small things, all of which suggests a significant transformation taking place. So these forces collectively can improve R&D throughput by essentially allowing companies like IBM or Nokia or Foxbuzz or Decathlon to leverage resources, inputs, innovators, technologies from all over, and maximize the throughput of their R&D machine. Another thing you can do through these forces that improves cost leadership, because you make small investments yourself and you distribute investments across a large number of players. An example of some companies that have been doing that. So it's, one example is the Amazon Mechanical Turk, which brings together many different parties to collectively complete a job, and thereby you reduce your own costs and you build essentially a network of entrepreneurs and distribute the costs and the risks across the wide body. And you increase revenues. You increase revenues in a variety of different ways. So the first example up there is Dell, which launched the Dell Idea Stock, and essentially it's a way to solicit ideas from developers, from customers, from their own employees, on different ways to improve on products, different ways to improve on processes, and over the years, it significantly decreased the negative online coverage of their products, and which contributed to an increase in the top line. Now, I've been extolling the virtues of smallness, and I wanted to leave time for us to have a conversation, and my idea, as I mentioned, was primarily to throw a few thoughts your way, and also not just highlight some examples, but also talk about some fundamental structural forces that are suggesting that smallness is going to be big going forward. But before I sort of make this an unadulterated song of praise of smallness, let me also suggest that let's not get carried away by the fact that anything small is necessarily beautiful. So
there is a bottleneck for a small entrepreneur.
yeah.
There is a lot of innovation by small entrepreneurs still in India. In India, there is a problem of finances, because there are no boards, there are not much of venture capital funds for funding those innovations.
Yeah.
And the banks are also not giving the small entrepreneur without any collateral security.
Yeah.
So that is a major bottleneck India will feel in spite of innovation, in spite of entrepreneurship. It's the biggest hurdle. Whereas for a big company, a lot of private equity fund will also come in, a lot of banks will develop funds without any collateral security and all that. So this is a big bottleneck I feel being in finance in this part of India.
Yeah, absolutely, and you know, I don't know if it gives you any comfort, but this is a problem not just in India; it's anywhere in the world, right? So you know, we only hear about the startups who get money from venture capital or from angels, and then 5 years later they become Facebook, right? So we only hear about that. You don't hear about the 100 companies that did have perhaps an even better idea than Facebook, and they got, but somehow they can never attach themselves to the small unit for the purpose, for the reasons that I talked about earlier, that all of us talked about earlier. So I think your point is well taken. Unfortunately, I think this is a challenge all over, and the best thing to do is always keep persisting. You'll be rejected many times before you get accepted. B, have a really compelling proposition and be very clear about why it's distinctive. Who's the target consumer? How do I grab their attention? How do I get them to buy the first product? And then how do I cross the chasm? From the first to the tens to the 100 to the 1,000, right? And of course, you know this. You're an entrepreneur. This is the bread and butter. And if you do it right, eventually the money will come to you. I think this is a picture that I have of a unit called Play Pump International. I don't know if has anybody heard of Play Pump? Can you tell us what it is? As I was just described, it's a very simple mechanism to try and solve the problem of the lack of clean water. And this was originated in South Africa. Clean water is a problem. Unfortunately, today this unit doesn't exist anymore. And the reason is that we all fall in love. To your point, sir, if you have a really beautiful small idea, you capture people's attention, and you tell them, "Look, I've put together this many tiny things," and especially you have small children at play solving a problem for an entire village. I mean, how much more beautiful does it get? And instantly, people open up their wallets, and Jay-Z will come and do a benefit concert for you, right? It's small is indeed beautiful, but the problem is the small, and I think you made the same point, which is that there are, in addition to getting funding, there are other challenges that small has, which is I don't have a backup infrastructure. And these kids, when they're playing on this stuff, it turns out that they actually have to play almost 24 hours a day to get enough water for the village. So then, when the kids get tired and they go off, I need somebody else to run this thing. So there's nobody else to run it. Now, even when the kids play on this thing, there's a lot of wear and tear. Where do I get the parts from? It turns out that to actually have the logistics and the supplies for these parts set up, it's an expensive business. I can't manage that in Southern Africa, where the early installations of these systems went. So behind smallness, there is actually a lot of detail. And as you all know, you entrepreneurs, you all know, it's easy enough to come up with a clever idea if you're a clever person. Execution is just is where the real challenge is, and unfortunately, execution challenges are much more for small institutions than they are for large. The large ones have processing units. Here's perhaps one of the most famous iconic small thing in recent times from right where we are, and we don't know whether in the execution stage it's going to succeed. So the jury's still out, and some people shake their heads and others are still hopeful. So where do I land in terms of how one pieces together the next small thing? I'd say that there are sort of a few different pieces to the jigsaw puzzle, and let me just kind of outline them for you. One is designed for three things: affordability, accessibility, and appropriateness. Affordability we all understand. Whether you're in a developing market or you're in the most developed markets, we're all looking for stuff that's affordable. I want something that's cheap, but I want something that doesn't make me feel cheap. So affordability has a very, there's some nuance to it. Accessibility is also important. We all live in, we either live in, villages where I still want toothpaste, or I want that little sachet of soap or shampoo. That needs to get the person in the village. I need to be able to get the detergent, all the way to the village. Similarly, you may not be living in a village. You may be living in Brussels, in the middle of a global village, and you've got your eyes fixed on an iPhone. That person is very hard to reach. So if I'm trying to sell my product to that person, accessibility is very difficult. So we all become it's very difficult to access us. So accessibility is critical. Appropriateness, both in terms of design, whatever we produce, if you have an ATM that you're going to put in a small Mufassal town, that ATM, it better be rugged. It better be able to withstand dusty conditions. It better be able to count bills, rupees that have been crumpled before. It's not all clean rupees. It should be able to deal with those conditions. It needs to use appropriate technology. So, the AAA formula is always kind of the starting point. If you don't have that, basically it's not going to work. But there's more to it. Think about building platforms, not just products.